Hey everyone, my name is Jan, and this weekend I'm going to be completely monopolizing the large table over here in my old room and laying out my comic book pages and work on the remaining pages. It's not the kind of job I'm going to be able to finish in one weekend, but it's certainly not going to be for lack of trying. That's the plan. So let's get started. First things first. Hands-free. Oh yes. We got the coffee, we got the rough inks version, we got the traditional pages I've done already over here, and of course the tools. Last week in the Tarragona episode, I went to a Comic-Con, got some markers. Now I'd love to be able to use these again. They're not going to be for right now, but in this episode of making Phosphor, I think this is the fourth one, I kind of want to show you how I get started working on my comic book when I have time available. So Phosphor is my little sci-fi adventure comic book, in case you're new to this channel. It's been quite a project. It's the kind of passion project I've been working on for a number of years now. When I first started the 100 Days of Making Comics, the internet challenge that Kevin Cross started up all that time ago, where you take half an hour out of your day, every single day for 100 consecutive days, and work on your personal comic book project, you know, to get into the groove, the discipline, and finish an actual comic book. Maybe not in 100 days, or maybe not in, you know, a number of years like I have, but you're certainly working on it the whole time, and it's very fulfilling. And if you're not aware of the V100s, as we call the little community surrounding this internet challenge, there's loads of comic books and comic book creators to follow right here on YouTube. So for my project, one second, you'll be seeing a lot more of this very strong Filipino coffee, courtesy of my beautiful girlfriend. In order to show you a proper day's work or several days work of Phosphor, let's see how much I can get done this Easter weekend. I kind of want to show you how I would ideally get started, which is, of course, for today, I'm using the big table. I'm going to lay everything out, but I'm also going to go through some of the exercises I do to warm up, which I find very helpful to, you know, increase the chances of delivering on a piece of art that I'm happy with, for it to go the right way. It's kind of I always call it warming up the hands, but really it's warming up the brain to get into the swing of things, comic book wise. We draw. I just really quickly want to do some really basic stuff. I'm not even bothered with anything more than really simple guidelines to just remind myself to draw along those things. So let's draw one of the main girls. Very rough. And one of the things I find when it comes to warming up is I kind of need to draw really, really fast so I don't get bogged down and lose track. So let's go. And by losing track, I mean getting stuck on rendering or something really hard, and then you end up spending an inordinate amount of time on that rather than just quickly getting into the swing of things and then focus at the problem at hand, like a particular panel that you're working on. Now, I'm just gonna show you a couple of these, and then right after that, I'm gonna make one of the pages that I've already designed in my rough inks version, as I call it, which you can download and read for yourselves over on Gumroad. I'll post a link down below. And yeah, we'll make one of those pages. Like, we'll put down some blue pencils, some outlines, and then we'll go into full-on rendering the entire page before the end of this weekend. That's one square, next character. So I suppose we could just draw the same one from a different angle and just zoom out, if you will. So this is kind of how I warm up. Like I draw a face. I draw a face at a different angle. I draw a full-on figure. You know, like a little bit of anatomy. I try and do something that I know I can do, but it's going to be a little tricky because it'll be a little bit random. You know, like a particular difficult pose. Or lately, I try and do people inside a scene a lot more. Like, for example, just someone sitting on a chair in a room. Just draw a very rough outline of the room. But like the other day, I suddenly realized like I was having a really hard time drawing boots from particular angles, so I had to go, you know, just drawing boots from reference. Sometimes when I pick a particular difficult pose, I draw the pose, I try and do it myself, and then when I realize I'm getting stuck, like I'm having a hard time, I finish it, but then right afterwards, I'll take a picture of myself in that pose or shoot a little video of myself. Because when you shoot video afterwards, you can scrub through the video and just pick the frame you want, so you can try out a lot of different variations on the pose very quickly and going through the animation. And that really helps with learning how, for example, cloth moves and works. So for the next part, I simply want to use a different tool, and I made these quick little sketches. One is a little bit more in perspective. One is just a close-up of a face. And again, like I just want to kind of get something going really fast. It still gives me enough to think about, you know, like what am I actually doing? This is kind of hard, like drawing out of perspective, never mind holding a camera. So just quickly dropping in some shadows here, some shapes. This is the character Taskmaster, just looking all boss-like, hands behind his back. Again, see, even though it's slightly off camera, I can tell the angle of the shoes is not correct. All right, let's get started on rendering her little face. So let's talk a little bit about comics I've been reading. I have been catching up in Marvel Unlimited. I started doing that thing I said I was going to do, which is Google the correct chronological order of X-Men storylines from the last 20 years, because I guess I kind of dropped out in the mid-90s when a lot of them moved to Image. So I know there's lots of really good storylines since then. I've heard of them, but I haven't actually read them because it's a bit of a daunting task when there's so many series and annuals. But if you Google, you will find a fan site that will simply make your life a hell of a lot easier. So that's what I did, and I started with what's the name of this storyline? I think it's Extermination. And it's pretty awesome. It's a storyline where there's a whole new generation of Sentinels, and they're not just the towering, hulking robots of the way we remember them, but they come in all sorts of insectoid, shape-shifting sizes, and right off the bat, they go to that island Magneto has, Genosha, and wipe out 16 million mutants. So full-on genocide. And then they kind of take it from there. Like it's a really epic, high-stakes storyline so far, from what I can tell from just 4 issues. The art is stylized, but very good. Like I really enjoy it. It's very colorful, like very, yeah, like really good characterizations, like the faces and everything, and like it's a fun read. Other things I've been reading are that new Star Wars title that has been going, I guess, for 2 or 3 years already. But I've just read the first 4 issues, and it's pretty fun. I don't think it's fun enough for myself that I would have stuck with it if I had to buy individual issues. But again, like this Marvel Unlimited app, like if you have an iPad or if you're willing like me to read on your phone, I mean, you could, you know, there's 25,000 comics. Like it's awesome. That's all I got to say about it. You know, it's really good. So it comes recommended if you haven't had your week's free trial, and then quickly cancel before they get your credit card details. But yeah, I'm just paying for it. Like, you know, it's what, £9, £9. You know, so these days that's like 3 comics, and you if not 2, and you got your money's worth. So yeah. Anyway, back to Phosphor. Why limit yourself to a table when you have a whole bed? All right, so I'm just gonna lay out the pages as best as I can. I feel like that's something completely different. That is still a video you're gonna look forward to, I hope. Okay. I'm actually not sure about the order of some of these. That is why we made these beforehand, the rough inks version. So let's lay them out. So these are this is the first rough version I made of the comic book, to give an idea of what it would actually look like. Not, oh, what's that? Horror A4. Goes. Can you see? I still think this is a really cool version. I seem to be missing 2 over here. Maybe I'm just kind of losing track of everything because it's, you know, I'm taking so much time. So yeah, let's go find the missing 2 pages over there and reread the story just quickly. And myself, because I know the story, but I'm just this is a luxury problem to have, losing track of the pages, chronological order. All right, let's get going. So to just quickly give you a little overview of what I've got. So the story I want to tell, the elevator pitch, if you will, is very much, we've got a group of scavengers on somewhat of an expedition looking for work who come across something that they've never seen before. And it might just be the answers to all their prayers, of all their troubles. So greed kicks into high gear, but what they don't realize is that they're not alone, and they've uncovered something very dark and mysterious that might just end up killing all of them unless they can get their act together. Though it wasn't the kind of story that I set out to make originally, like years ago, which was much more of a superhero story and trying to come up with an origin of the powers and the suit that this guy had. Over time, like, the story developed into something completely different. And when I tried to come up with a project that I could actually finish, I know the irony, right? I'm working on this for years, but I started cutting things out and just focusing on a very small period of time. And then from there, it just crystallized that I very much play into genres like Alien and The Thing. These are kind of the kinds of movies that I love, that are some of my personal favorites. And I've always wanted to play in those universe. I've always wanted to put my own twists on things, like how things happen in films or stories typical of that ilk. So instead of truckers in space, like in Alien, or a scientific outpost, as in The Thing, this is more of a factory. And so there's a whole range of characters that I get to play with. So this is how it begins. Page 16. This is the Roughings version, in which I got my light source and my shadow work on top of the rough pencils, put in the dialogue to make sure that I'm not going to waste too much time afterwards trying to fit the dialogue in. It fits. I know where it's going to cover art, so I don't have to worry too much about that. Time to copy this one into a little light blue pencil over here so I can get started on the inks. And so this one is a double spread. So this is the page 17. You can see the layout is the same. These light sources kind of move into one another. It's a nice little action scene. Having trouble with this one because, you know, the him slipping off a ledge, tumbling down. There's the wire he's attached to arcing. First I had it like this, and then I was like, wait a minute, he was standing over here, so it follows him like that. Some of the anatomy, the perspective, especially the boots, having a hard time. There's also going to be some serious light source action from her shoulder, from his shoulder. That's going to create some conflict over here that I'm going to have to figure out. But those are my first blue pencils. I'm doing these two at the same time with everything, so blue pencils, it's a little hard to see for you guys, so it's a little hard to show off what I'm actually doing because it doesn't quite show up as well, but I'm having a hard time. So far, the hardest thing laying out these pages are getting some of these action scenes to really stand out. Like I need some, you know, some serious anatomy going. I need some serious, like, people falling off ledges, holding onto ropes tightly, and like sitting defeated on a ledge, holding onto that rope after they've almost lost their life. And the latter stuff is gonna be like tiny figures, but like the actiony stuff where it's gonna be like big panels, like you can see here, like half the page. I'm gonna have to get it right. And so some of the parts, especially the boots, and like I'm having a hard time. And I'm also having a hard time like putting the heads inside of helmets and like thinking about the reflection and the shininess and like how much you can see through and not. Like, I don't know. I'm just gonna have to go for it when it's time to ink. But yeah, like the perspective of the walls and the ship and this ledge that they're on, it's, yeah, my friend, the eraser, my friend. So this is how I begin on 2 pages, on page 17 before 16, because I don't know if it's because I'm left-handed, so I tend to want to work from the right to the left so I don't smear over it, you know, if there's wet ink, or if it's simply, you know, page 17 is the last one I was working on. I spent a lot of time trying to get these figures right and trying to hold back on some of the It's another mistake I find I tend to make, which is I tend to want to zoom in too much on objects, and so I'm not framing it right. So I'm starting to become more aware. For example, over here, there's some figures, there's some nice little storytelling. So when I redraw some of these figures, like I zoom in, like there's no need for me to redraw it like that, but I just have this tendency. So a lot of erasing and a lot of like, okay, like let's make him smaller. I spent so much time on page 17 that, you know, it's also fresh in my mind, like how I want it. So I think that's why I'm inking it first this time. And it's hard to get started because it's an overwhelming page. There's going to be a lot of rendering to be done. So where do I begin? I figured I'd just get started with some of the stones that are raining from the sky besides rain. And I'm kind of freehanding it. I'm not using the rulers on this one. I don't know, it just feels more organic that way sometimes. For some things, definitely use a ruler, and for other things, I just wanted to go like across the page. So let's get started. Let's do some really basic outlining that is definitely going to be in there, and then just start filling it in, the deep blacks and then the rendering, and like, let's see how we can how fast we can draw this, huh? I've just added a little bit of detail, and I started rendering here because I realized I had this bright light, and I had the opportunity to just set the tone for the rest of the piece, working out the shadow of the shoulder with a bright light right next to it. The brush is something I've been staying away from for a long time, but now I can definitely say that it is part of my workflow. Like when I'm out rendering, instead of spending way too much time with a little pen trying to color something in, I just get the brush. When I've got the design of a page down or a piece, and I know there's going to be some very dark areas, I tend to get out the dry brush and just have a go at it and just see what comes out before I completely douse everything in black. You know, just to see if there's a cool texture that pops up. I find that working with the brush definitely helps with getting a feel for the whole page a lot quicker. Not feeling too well today. Got a bit of a migraine going. There's a heat wave in London, in the north of London, north of Europe, and down here it's not looking too great, and all that extra pressure has just been, which is not helpful on this extra long weekend off. But I got the news playing in the background, seeing what's going on in the world, and time to get started. So it's evaluation time. Now that I've had a little bit of a step back and the coffee is kicking in, it's time to admit that the way I imagined this piece, like yesterday I could even see the rendering on the rain pipe and like some of the other objects here. And then when I started drawing, what happened was I just started flicking away at the page as if that is how I do those kinds of rendering effects. And I knew that, but I was just kind of doodling, and I don't know, like, I guess I just kind of lost focus. This right here. This right here. Blob. And so some of the objects came out horrible, which is why I started applying the brush. I'm like, let's just cover this up because this is not going anywhere. And in other parts, I end up doing something that I didn't know how to do, or I didn't imagine how to do it. I just started applying the rules of like, there's these shapes, there's a light source over here, so there's a shadow going to be cast here, so I'm just gonna start cross-hatching, and that actually came out pretty cool. So sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But in case of this rain pipe here, I should have, in pencil, done the little circly thing to help my mind like see the shape in 3D, because the rendering of just ticking away at it, it just didn't work on any part of the scene. So that was very frustrating, and it looks very, very messy, which I hope will fall away once this gets scaled down, and you know, to make the line art look a little bit more tighter. This is definitely going to be one of those pages where whiteout is going to have to be used to clean up a lot of the line art and put some detail back in by taking detail out. If that makes sense. Because as always, I do over detail, over doodle. And there's definitely some parts where now that it's looking more and more like a finished piece, I can see where some of the doodling has to just be gone. There's also a thing I did the other day for the V100's second anthology comic book that I'm doing. A 4-page mini comic book. What is happening here? Okay, see, this is a mistake. Okay, so for the 4-page mini comic book, one of the things that I did was I blew up the pages so that I could add the gray tones to it traditionally. And by blowing it up, because the original was about half the size of this, so like that, closer to the 11 by 7 comic book page at 100%. By blowing it up, I got to see my line work in a whole different light. And it looked pretty, you know, a lot of this rendering that I do is really sketching in ink. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, and you blow it up, it looks like the inking just looks horrible. Like it just looks absolutely. So while I was doing the gray tones, I was also cleaning up a lot of the line art, like I would do in Photoshop normally, which was fun to do traditionally. But now that I'm working large and I'm looking at this with a bit of distance, I can already see like how there's a lot of line art here where it's too squiggly, or I was sketching, and so I should really just go over it with a brush and just douse it in black, you know? So as you're watching me fill in the little figure in the background, going through a door, casting a shadow on the wall while caught in a beam of light, that was a bit of a, I was adding more and more detail there, and I was like, this could really backfire. But I think it came out all right. Now for the top part, which is going to be more and more brush work to keep the shapes really simple and just not to detract from where your attention should be. And then onto the final panels on the top of the page, which is where the action scene is really going to be told sequentially, of someone falling off a ledge, being caught, and being hauled back up to the ledge. So I just got this today along with some fresh Stettler pens, and I've started applying some little fixes. So I don't know if you can see them. Just a little highlight on the boots. Some of the lines, just to make them come across here a little bit better. There was a mistake over here with one of the pipes where the shadow was wrong, so fix that. Added a little bit of line here and there to make a light peer through underneath the ring pipe. And now I want to do the same up above, but I'm gonna try and be a little bit more creative. So what I'm hoping this will do is to create a bit of an effect, so I don't have to do a cross line. Let's hope this works. Paper over here. Seems to have done the trick. Get a continuation of the building, the ship I should say. You need some nice spaces in here. Drew a line here because I felt the need to really make it stand out. And over here I didn't, because I was hoping for some happy accidents. If I just do it like this, I can always add the line in afterwards if it's not clear or if it distracts from all this stuff. But if it can create some nice white spaces without having to apply this right here. I only just bought this. I find a lot of these pens that I've been, okay, this is a bad example. This is not this one, Uni Paint. I really want to, you know, be able to use whiteout to create different kinds of effects and to try out different ways of getting an image to come out. When you painstakingly draw detail, keeping in mind what needs to stay white and what not, it's very time consuming, like staying on top of it. And it's easy to make mistakes. And when you've planned an image in advance enough so that you know exactly where those lines are going to go, it might just be a hell of a lot faster to just add white rather than draw outside of where a white line is going to be. I always believed that how they draw, for example, Colossus of the X-Men, like all the chrome detail, was by painstakingly, knowing exactly where the grooves in his metal arms would go. So you can imagine how my mind was blown watching some of Jim Lee's draw along streams, and he just makes this smudgy thing with his with some toilet paper and some ink, and then just afterwards just paints the grooves super fast. So yeah. And also Sam Keith, he always does like a ton of effects that I could never figure out how he did that, but it's little tools like these. So I am very disappointed with a lot of the pens I tried out. They never seem to, like, the ink is just not runny enough, and when it does run, it's too much. I don't get to have that control that I get with, say, these pens. So that is just the way it is. I'll keep trying out different brands and just to see if I can find one. But in the meantime, all of a sudden it hit me that whiteout or Tipex here is, it's got a little brush and I can get to town, and it is fluid. And so far, it's been a hell of a lot better than trying to paint, because I do have white paint and I have a brush, but I'm just very messy. I don't clean my brushes enough. So yeah, everything coagulates and like it's a mess. So hopefully you'll be seeing some very cool new effects with this. So did I overdo it? Or is this in the background enough? I think it works. say, hey, we have it, the artist and his art. So this is page 17. Remember, it could be yours one day. Who knows, it might be up for sale during a Kickstarter. But if you like this page, let me know. And stay tuned for more Phosphor coming your way, because I did the count and we have about 10 more pages to go, I'd say. So the end is in sight. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it wasn't too boring. You know, these art videos. If you're an artist yourself, I hope you got something out of it, something I do. If you have any questions, if I do something that wasn't clear, you'd like to know, just hit me up in the comments down below, and I'll see you there.